What's going on, world? Steve Dab 317 back with another reaction video, and this is actually not going to be a music reaction, but instead a reaction to a trailer of an up and coming movie that will likely be very controversial, at least to some. The movie title is The Lady of Heaven, so I'm going to be reacting to the Lady of Heaven trailer. I believe it's scheduled to come out next month, but yeah, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get my headphones on. And let's get it popping.
The world is in shock as a group of terrorists has taken control of large areas of Syria and Iraq.
The world can be a cruel and dangerous place. Remember, even if you're afraid, be strong. Your loving mother, Fatima. Did you?
So, and for anyone who may not already know this, and this is in reference to the life of Fatima Muhammad. So,
Your mother ever tell you the story of
back a little bit.
your loving mother, Fatima? Did your mother ever tell you the story of the Lady of Heaven? She was very special. Daughter to the Prophet Muhammad.
My time is near. And afterwards, my lovely Fatima, you will face many trials.
With my father no longer here to lead us, evil is with those who will extinguish the light of truth.
You're gonna let a woman tell us what to do. We will burn her out.
God will judge all of you. This world has become a breeding ground of violence. The shadow will be cast across many generations.
Alright, so already, and I know I'm just kind of checking out a brief trailer, but this seems like it's going to be a really, man, it seems like it's going to be a great movie, a great film. Seems like it's going to highlight some things that many of us, especially in the Western world, may not be aware of. You know, and I imagine it's going to touch bases to the... I don't want to say divide, because there's really not necessarily there's really not necessarily a divide between Sunnis and Shiites from the best of my understanding. And again, if I'm incorrect, correct me down in the comments. I'm absolutely fine with that. But from my understanding, once Muhammad died, basically the different viewpoints, you know, like, again, I don't really want to call it a divide, you know, because there's still quite a few individuals who get along, you know, just fine with each other. But I think the difference of views came down to who was to be in charge, you know, after the fact. You know, would it be an individual from Muhammad's family, or from the Prophet Muhammad's family, or would it be an individual that the followers chose? And from the best of my understanding, that's kind of where different viewpoints, you know, started to be adopted. Sorry about that. But yeah, let's let this finish rolling. I'm going to go back about 10 seconds and I'll chat a little bit more about why I think this is going to be a very impactful film.
This world has become a breeding ground of violence. The shadow will be cast across many generations to come.
It's said some people are so full of faith. They give strength to everyone around them.
The greatest thing in this life and the hereafter is the spreading of peace in the world.
Lady Fatima's goodness.
I love that. In fact, I love that line so much. I'm going to go back so everybody can hear it again. Because when it's all said and done, what I think peace and love is truly the key to so many things, and I'll touch bases on that. But
In this life and the hereafter is the spreading of peace in the world.
Lady Fatima's goodness inspired people to stand up, no matter what the cost. Her legacy lives on.
yeah, I am going to have to put this on my list of items or of movies to watch. I don't go to the movies often, but this is definitely one that I do want to see. One, because I believe it'll be educational for me. And again, being from if I made the Western world, like my exposure and information is relatively limited. You know, I have to try to result back to things that I've read or seen or the few conversations I've had with people. So like I said before, anything I may say, if it's not 100% accurate, just let me know down in the comments. You know, I mean, nothing wrong with that. I'm a human. I don't expect myself to be perfect. But one thing I will say is, and again, I keep prefacing things to the best of my understanding, because again, these may not absolutely be, this may not be absolutely factual information coming from me, but I believe that Sunni Muslims believe that Fatima was the youngest of Muhammad's daughters, whereas Shiites believe that Fatima was the only. Believe that Fatima was his only daughter. And again, that's where I think a difference of viewpoints often comes in. But I really want to touch bases on that, because you know, and this isn't specific to Muslims. It's not specific to Christianity. It's not specific to Hinduism. Like, I feel that there are so many people, and over the years, like, stories have been, you know, passed down from one generation to the next generation. And what happens is, as stories begin to be translated, I believe that people oftentimes paraphrase things. And sometimes very significant information can be lost in translation. All right. Actually, is it on my bookshelf up here, or maybe it's on my? So I've got a religious section on my book, one of my bookshelves. It may be my bookshelf downstairs, so I won't. But anyways, I think what often happens is, like, things either get lost in translation or misinterpreted in translation. But you know, from what I've gathered, and this is speaking of all religions, from what I've gathered, there's been more bloodshed as a result of religious wars than any other cause that anyone has ever fought for. And I'm pretty sure if you combine all those other causes, it probably wouldn't even come remotely close. You know, and the reason why I paused it a moment ago when they talked about, you know, spreading love throughout the world, right? Because when it's all said and done with, like, I may have a viewpoint, but I also realize that I'm human, and my viewpoint is going to be strongly influenced by my best interpretation as a human. You know, whereas your views may be completely different from mine, but just because you think, let's say, just because you think red is the best color in the world and I think blue is the best color in the world, whatever our differences are, that doesn't mean that we can't get along. All right, and I think part of the problem is there's not enough people willing to sit down and have a conversation about things, or there's so many people who when they attempt to have a conversation, they're so strongly influenced by their emotions, they never take the time to listen. All right, and I bring that up because, like, and I've studied on a surface level, I've studied quite a few different religions, and, like, there are so many similarities. And what I believe has happened, I do believe that we have a creator, right? I don't believe we just appeared out of nowhere. You know, these are my own personal beliefs. You may disagree, and that's absolutely fine. But, you know, when you look at the different stories of creation across different religions, like the base bulb of it, oftentimes the story is like the exact same, but with different names used, or the story's been told a slightly different way. And I mean that's oftentimes what we do when we have to rely on word of mouth. And then another thing, like if I have a story, and let's say I know a story, and I don't know all the correct terminology for it, but then I want to teach that same story to my 1-year-old, right? Well, I may change some of the language because I want my 1-year-old to understand the significance and the impact of that story. Now, when that 1-year-old grows up, the version of the story they've heard has been the slightly altered version which I've told them. And then maybe, he or she becomes an adult, and then they have a 1-year-old, and they tell them the story, and they modify it slightly so they can best interpret and understand it. Or maybe things in the world has changed, and like language is always evolving and always changing. So it's like, I really, truly, in my heart, I believe that if people spent more time focus on what I believe we're ultimately called to do, and that's love one another, I think that's the answer. And I get it may be easier said than done, but I truly believe that, like, we got to start there. Like, even with my viewpoints, like, let's say you're, it doesn't matter, let's say you're atheist, right? And we have different viewpoints. Like, every time I speak to you, like, my primary goal isn't you need to believe what I believe, or you need to do this and this. Like, that's not my primary emphasis in life. And I get that some people feel like that they're spiritually called to do that, and that's a whole nother conversation. But I feel like my primary focus is to understand you and respect you as a person. Like, why do you have those viewpoints? And if I take the time to sit down and listen, maybe you've got a heartfelt, detailed story, or maybe you've got a ton of reasoning and logic behind why you come to that decision. And at the end of the day, I may not even necessarily agree with you, but if I take the time and listen, I can learn to respect your viewpoint. Right? And that's all I ask of people to do with me and my views. That's what I try to do with others and their views. And it's something that I think, honestly, this world, all of us collectively, that's something we need to learn how to do. Like, we are humans. We are interpreting the best we can. Right? We can't always look at our interpretation, or I can't look at the way Steve sees things and feel that everybody else in the world needs to look through this lens, because it doesn't work that way. The other problem with that is the very moment I'm set on my way is the absolute truth. There's nothing else in the world. I don't want to hear anything you have to say, or she has to say, or he has to say. The very moment I hit that place, I close myself off to learning. Think about that for a moment. The very moment I hit the space where I say, you know what? This is it. My views are the absolute, the only truth, the only way. I close myself off to being able to learn. Right? So I think when I do that, I would handicap myself. Someone once said in the comments, yes, be open-minded, but don't be so open-minded that every time you tilt your head, your brain falls out. And I kind of laugh. I mean, there's a lot of truth to that, right? So you have to be clear in your focus and in your ways. But I think the better you are at understanding yourself and what you believe, the more comfortable you should be with having those conversations, and the more open and willing you should be to listening to other interpretations or other viewpoints. And we have to remember that when we look at religion, like, no, let me backtrack. When we look at our beliefs, like, and when we've got our different varying beliefs, which is fine, right? We should all be different. We shouldn't all think the same. But when you look up the definition of a belief is an opinion with a strong emotional conviction. Now, this very moment, there are a handful of you who are watching this video and you probably click thumbs down, I'm out of here, I'm unsubscribing to the channel, and that's okay. Because you haven't reached a point in life where you are able to open-mindedly interpret things on the same level that some other people are. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, so if you feel like that's your next best play, I'm okay with that, and I still respect you. Because that's the thing, we don't have to think the same, but I can respect you no matter what. Now, on that same token, there are individuals who do things that I absolutely don't agree with. You know, and for those own personal reasons, you know, I find it difficult to respect them as an individual or to respect their actions. However, I do try to sit and think, what was their mindset? What was their viewpoint when they were doing this and that? Why do they feel like this was okay to do? But going back to what I was saying, I digress. So a belief, if you look it up in a dictionary, or look it up wherever you want to look it up, it's an opinion with strong emotional conviction, right? But when we get to the point where when we learn how to celebrate, wow. When we learn how to separate our emotions from our decision making when need be, when we learn how to do that, we can actually take the time to truly listen, not just hear what they're saying, not just sit there waiting for my next rebuttal, but to actually listen to what they're saying. So that's why I'm so excited to watch this movie. One, because I want to learn more. As I've said dozens of times before, if there's additional insider information about this story or this movie that you can share with me, put it down in the comments. I love learning. And I'm never going to read a comment and think to myself, oh, well, this person or that person, they're wrong. They don't know what they're talking about. No, you look at my feedback. Even when I don't agree with people, usually I say something like, okay, I can see how you can see things like that. Or, okay, that's different. Or, hey, you know what? I may not agree, but I respect it. That's your view. And that's okay. Right? Because when it's all said and done with, all of us in this world, all of us on this planet, all of us in this universe, like, we're called to love each other, man. We figure that part out, we can worry about all the other stuff later. Because when you truly love a person for who they are, you start noticing other things they're not necessarily deal breakers. At least not for me. You know, if I've got a viewpoint in terms of religion and your viewpoint is different, guess what? There is a billion other things in the world we can talk about that don't even involve religion, right? If politically I'm here and you're there, guess what? There are a billion other things in the world we can talk about that don't involve politics, right? So, you know, that's kind of my stand. I know this has turned into a, from a 3-minute trailer to a bit of a long-winded video series, but, you know, I try to be transparent with everything. You know, this trailer put something on my heart. I'm glad I can share it with you all. I'm looking forward to the full movie, and I'll probably do a review on that as well. Anyways, Steve Dab 317, those are my words. Would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. For now, I'm signing out. Peace.